Hello, I'm Jackie Schollerman with Schollerman Group of Coldwell Banker Realty here in downtown Palo Alto. I am with Ellen Cookman, the prominent estate planning attorney in Palo Alto as well. Ellen, welcome, and tell us about Prop 19. And I know you're going to compare those to other props that most of the viewers are really interested to learn about.
Great. Thank you so much, Jackie. I'm happy to speak about this, and this comes up a lot. In estate planning, we really have 5 different types of taxes that are involved. We have estate tax, gift tax, GST tax, capital gains tax, and California property taxes. And what I'm talking about is only related to California property taxes, although at the end we might touch on capital gains tax a little bit. So I'd like to provide just a very short history of how Prop 13 was developed and how it's related to Prop 58 and Prop 60 and Prop 90. So what I'd like to do is share a screen with you. So back before 1978, California functioned a lot like other states did, where every 1 to 5 years, the assessor's office would go out and reassess properties. And you would pay property tax based on that reassessment, okay, which is about 1%. Now, what the Proposition 13 said, which passed it was very popular, and it was passed in 1978, it said that you're not to reassess a property for property tax purposes unless there's a change in ownership. So as you own a property, and I know many California property owners right now are very happy about this, your property taxes go up just a tiny little bit each year. They're not allowed to be increased more than 2% a year. So that's the baseline for Prop 13. Now, the problem arose that what if we're doing a transfer, if a parent dies and a child inherits that property, that's a change in ownership. And so the property would be reassessed and the child would have to pay much higher property taxes, especially here in the Bay Area, where our property values have increased tremendously, much more than that 2% incrementalism per year. Okay, so in 1986, you'll see the next thing. Okay, in 1986, Prop 58 was passed by the California public, Proposition 58. And what that said is that Prop 13, the low property tax reassessment amount, is going to apply when things pass from parent to child. So it really expanded what Prop 13 applies to. All right. And that's really good for our families in the Bay Area, where the kids want to stay in the Bay Area. But if the property is reassessed, now they're paying $25,000, $40,000 a year in property taxes, which can be too expensive to be able to stay here. Okay, now there's another issue that comes up, and that is if somebody's a senior and they want to downsize their house. Okay, so they want to transfer, they want to sell one house and move into a condo, right? They had this big house when the kids were growing up, and then they said, well, hold on, I don't need all this space now, and I'd like to access some of the equity to actually live on and live in a smaller house. So that's what Proposition 60 and Proposition 90, what those 2 propositions address. They say, if you're a senior, if you're age 55 or older, you can do one downsize, basically. You can move from one property to another property of equal or lesser value, and you can keep your low property tax basis. So it can be very helpful. Prop 60, as you can see, applies to transfers within the same county. So let's say you sell your house in Redwood City and you move to Redwood Shores. Okay, it's in the same county. Prop 90 applies to transfers in different counties. You sell your house in Redwood City and you move to San Jose, which is in Santa Clara County, a different county. Now, not all counties in California were covered under Prop 60 and Prop 90. The county actually had to opt in to receive this benefit. And most of the counties in the Bay Area did opt in, but a lot of counties where people would want to move to, let's say they wanted to move to Monterey County or Santa Cruz County or to Napa County, those, I don't believe those counties were covered. Okay, so that is the landscape for Prop 13, Prop 58, and Prop 60 and Prop 90. So before February 16th, 2021, this is the way it worked, okay? Now that date was a huge date because last November, Proposition 19 was passed. Well, who cares? Well, a lot of people care, okay? So there's several things that Proposition 19 did. The first thing it did not do is it did not change the underlying structure of Proposition 13, okay? That is still in place. Property taxes are still limited to increases of just 2% a year, and there's a reassessment when there's a change in ownership. But one thing that really changed is Proposition 58 and how that's applied. The parent-to-child exclusion changed dramatically, all right? And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So hold on to that thought, okay? Now, Prop 60 and Prop 90 were actually expanded. So Prop 58 was restricted, but Prop 60 and Prop 90 were expanded. So now all California counties are covered. So if you have a retired couple that wants to move down to Carmel, they can. And also they can buy a house that's the same or greater value and take that same low property tax base and up to $1 million more can be covered, okay? So it's nice that it provides more flexibility. It's not just for downsizing, it's for any type of move. And it can be up to 3 times, okay, for seniors and also for disabled people and for victims of the fires last year, all right? So we still consider it Prop 60 and Prop 90, but it's a more expansive view of seniors being able to make moves. Okay. So now I'd like to cover, well, what happened to Prop 58? Because that was really something that was snuck in there that very few people actually knew about and very many people are upset about. So imagine that this is the little Prop 58 square on the right side of after February 16th, 2021, that middle part. Okay, I kind of expanded it to show what happens. Okay, so before Prop 19, which really means February 16th, 2021, before that was implemented, this was the rule. A parent could pass along to a child their residence of any value. It could be a $5 million home and it could go to the child and the child would inherit the property or receive the property by gift with no reassessment. It was fabulous, okay? And then the parent can also pass along non-residences, so rental properties, second home, of up to $1 million of assessed value. So keep in mind, if a parent, for example, bought 2 rental properties back in the 70s that were assessed at $500,000 each, and now they're worth $3 million each, they can pass along those 2 rental properties to the children free of a reassessment, because those rental properties, when you add up the value, the assessed value is only $1 million, as opposed to the $6 million fair market value. So this was really helpful for a lot of parents and children. Okay, so here's what happened. Here's what changed. Now there's a limit for the residence. Okay, so the first thing is the parent can pass along their residence to the child if the child decides to make the residence their own residence. So the child has to move in and live in that property. We don't know exactly how long yet. They're still working out those details, but it could be 1 year, could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, okay? And then also the new assessed value for the child, it doesn't just remain the low assessed value. You can take the low assessed value and then add $1 million, and that would be the new assessed value, right? So it doesn't cover well, I'm sorry, 1 million exempted. And then everything above that 1 million of increase in the assessed value is now part of the new assessed value. All right, so that really doesn't work out well for children. I have one friend who is going to be inheriting a Palo Alto property from her father, but regardless of whether she moves in, if she moves in, yet the property is probably valued about 4 million, and they bought it, you know, in the 70s for $10,000 or whatever small amount, you know, she's still going to be paying a lot in property taxes. Okay. And then the other thing that's really detrimental, from a parent-child perspective, is that the child, that the non-residents cannot be transferred to the child without a reassessment. All non-residences are now being completely reassessed when they go to the children. So that's just been struck from the landscape. So if you know of any estate planning attorneys who were your friends and they didn't call you back at the beginning of February to answer your questions, this is why. We were all completely swamped because a lot of people were coming to us and saying, I need to transfer out these assets to my kids before February 16th, 2021. Now, most people who contacted me, I said, well, there may be a good reason not to do that though, because property gets a full step up. Now, remember I said I was going to talk about capital gains taxes. Yeah. Property gets a full step up in cost basis when you own a property at your death. Okay, so let's say I buy property for $100,000. It grows to $3 million, right? Palo Alto property, which is where we are. And then I die and I leave it to my kids. My kids receive it as if they had purchased it for $3 million. So they can turn around and sell it and there's no capital gains tax. So that's really nice. But what if you have parents who bought it for $100,000, now it's worth $3 million and nobody's died yet? There's no step up in cost basis. So they will transfer it to their kids and they transfer it as if the kid bought it for only $100,000. So the kid can get the low property tax. This is before February 16th. But unfortunately, they're receiving the low capital gains tax as well. So if and when they decide to sell the property in the future, there'll be a big capital gains tax hit. So unfortunately, California property taxes and capital gains taxes kind of work against each other. You know, they're not in tandem. So you really have to consult with a very knowledgeable estate planning attorney to figure out what type of transfer you want to do. Now, sometimes people ask me to reach into my crystal ball and to say, is this going to stick around? Clearly, it's very unpopular. The way that they paid for the good Prop 60 and 90 extensions were to restrict Prop 58, and that caught a lot of people off guard. That's not the way Prop 19 was marketed to the general public. So if I were to make a guess, my guess is this could be repealed in the future, the Prop 19 restrictions. But who knows? I really don't know. So, you know, we'll see. If I'm watching this video in a few years and I say, oh, that's what happened. Oh, there you go. My crystal ball was excellent up until 2020. And then just like everything, all hell broke loose and my crystal ball broke and I was wrong on 2 predictions. So now I'm not making predictions anymore. So I do want to say I come from a family of lawyers and teachers. I love, explaining things. And if you do have questions, I urge you to reach out to our office. Okay. You can reach out. The best email address to use would be info, I-N-F-O, at cookmanlaw, COOKMANLAW.com. You can also call our number at 650-690-2571. And we'll definitely be able to direct you to the right place. I do estate planning, special needs planning, trust administration, probate administration, and limited conservatorships for developmentally disabled individuals in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. That's about everything I had to share. So Jackie, do you have any questions right now?
No, you pretty much comprehensively answered every one of the questions that I had. Wonderful. This is great. I'm sure viewers are going to have specific questions pertaining to their family situation. And I'm glad that you gave your contact information for them to reach out to you directly. This was awesome. Thank you so much. Terrific presentation. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much, Jackie.